What's going on, everybody? Happy New Year. This is the first episode of At Me Bro for 2019. I am blessed and happy to be here with my man Nelson Blake II. What's going on?
I'm going to tell the people Happy New Year. And I got to say, Brian is cheating already during the show.
I am.
We got on a Mets jersey.
Yes.
And as y'all know, I'm old. I was a little kid in 1986.
Yes.
When the Mets was the Mets.
Yes.
And he's trying to make me go soft on him wearing my man Darryl Strawberry jersey. And it's not going to work.
Yes.
Just letting you know that right now. I love the jersey, but forget you. You still going to get it when you need it.
Darryl Strawberry was my guy, man. I love it.
Yo, you talk about awesome teams in history. We don't want to derail the show.
Yeah.
But that was an awesome, awesome sports team. Yeah. Like, if you're a fan of sports, that was a team of like superhero, reality TV, once in a lifetime personalities that you can get into. It actually reminds me of at that same time watching the Chicago Bears.
Yeah.
I was like, I could just enjoy the Bears, even though at that age, I hadn't even gotten into football yet. Like I started to really get into football right when the Giants won in the 90s. But the Bears was like the first team that I watched that was like, oh, this is cool.
Yeah.
Like Walter Payton is cool.
You know, tripped out there was because the Giants won in '86, the year right after. Yeah.
Right
after. And I remember the debates were the Giants defense in '86 as good as the Bears defense in '85 because Lawrence Taylor and Harry Carson and Carl Banks and all those guys. I think Everson Walls was on the '90 Giants.
Yeah.
But
before the Giants won, I was like, the Bears was my entry point to really starting to watch football because I played football. Maybe not at that age. I think maybe around that age I started playing football with like pads and everything, little league.
Oh, okay.
And we played in the street, and the video games I think had started to come out. And they didn't have all the players. They had like just a few Tecmo Bowl and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what year that came out, but I think it was around that time.
It was around that time.
Yeah. So the Giants Super Bowl was like my first great football memory. And I built up to that actually through the Bears.
Yeah. Well, you know, Chicago's always the best. So anyway, I also want to say Happy New Year and hello to my beautiful, beautiful producer of this show. My wife, she's really, really awesome. My Tamu Upindo. She is awesome. Just so she's doing her thing over there. So we're gonna jump into this show, and we're gonna start off. I got some stuff I want to talk about. As usual, we don't share what our rants are, so check it out. Let me get this right here real quick. Can y'all hear me? All right. Just got to make sure, because I want everybody to understand what I'm about to say. Floyd Mayweather Jr.
Uh-oh.
I don't know if y'all got a chance to see the fight between him and Tenshin Nasukawa on New Year's Eve. I mean, it didn't take place till about maybe 10 o'clock in the morning on New Year's Eve on the East Coast of United States, but you know, Japan's like, I think like 14 hours ahead or something like that, right? Man, okay. So it's a 3-round exhibition supposedly, right? And Tenshin Nasukawa is a 20-year-old kickboxer who generally competes at 127 pounds. Floyd fights at 147 most of the time, but when he fights, that's what he does. Now, Floyd is a freak genetically, right? So Floyd's out of shape looks different than everybody else's out of shape, right? But if you watch Floyd, then you know when he walked, you looked at Floyd's body and you like, Floyd, you just came from a barbecue. And you had all of the swine. You ate it all. You had been eating it all. So he wasn't in bad shape for a regular man, but he was in, dude, I'm not taking this serious shape for Floyd. Everybody knows when you see Floyd generally fight, it's a real defensive type of thing, in and out. Floyd came out against this little fella and did just like this and walked towards him and just bah, 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 bah. I'm saying, now you know somebody is overmatched when you hit them in the stomach and they feet fly out backwards. He hit him in the stomach. It looked like Tenshin Nasukawa got chop blocked. I said, but what? Get the boy's feet. Somebody get the boy's feet. Like, and then you ever see like when a son gets smart with his father, and his father has to show him that I got grown man strength and you a little boy, don't pull that.
Yeah.
When Floyd knocked him down the first time, that's the look that was on his face. He looked at him like, Dad. I ain't gonna say nothing else no more, Dad. And some people like they're getting on Floyd, they're talking negative about Floyd. Well, you know what? I really actually don't have a problem with Floyd for this particular fight. You know why? I'm gonna tell you why. I don't have a problem with it because Floyd never misrepresented this to be anything more than it was. He didn't take it serious in any of the pre-event stuff. He blew it all off. He made it all seem small and insignificant. And he went out there and did exactly what you would have expected him to do to a 20-year-old kickboxer who was 20 pounds lighter than him
and not allowed to kick.
And not allowed to kick. And if he kicked him, he immediately lost $5 million.
Right.
That was the contract. So you want to talk about a daddy move? Keep your feet on the ground too. Pick your foot up and see what happens to you. I'll slap it.
So B, I'm hearing a lot of people say that this was staged, right?
No, man.
And I can understand because of the kid's reactions. He looked like he was in a Power Ranger movie. Like he was flipping and flying all over the place, overselling like Shawn Michaels or Stone.
He wasn't overselling. He got hit. Why would he take the punches then?
Here's my question to all them people. Number one, if you watch that, similar to what you said, you're looking at a human being that don't belong in a fighting ring with Floyd Mayweather.
Not
especially
boxing.
If they can't kick.
Right.
He did not belong in the ring with Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather with the significant size, reach, weight, power, and from a hand standpoint, even out of shape, speed advantage.
Yes.
Like he literally, like I talk about the eye test a lot and really watching fighters and watching what goes on in spacing and stuff like that. Look at the speed and angles of Mayweather's punches versus this guy's observations of those punches.
Yes.
Right? Because even Conor McGregor, to his credit, looked like a world-class fighter in a different sport. Yes. When he fought Mayweather. Yes. He didn't look like some bum who didn't know how to fight. He just wasn't a world-class boxer. But as a fighter, he had an approach that was different from just some guy.
Yeah. Well, okay. Tenshin Nasukawa is not just some guy.
I know he's not just some guy. I'm saying that he's not a world-class enough fighter to be in a boxing ring with Mayweather to deal with that disadvantage.
Yeah, you know what I think the biggest thing was, and I feel even silly in analyzing this in too deep.
We should all feel silly after seeing that footage.
It's really kind of like breaking down the ingredients to ramen noodles or something. Like right. It's like really stupid. But I think the biggest advantage, the biggest thing was the size.
It's huge.
That's one of the reasons why McGregor didn't look so bad. Because McGregor's actually a bigger guy than Floyd. He's naturally a bigger guy. He carries, McGregor carries 170, 175 pounds. Well, easy. Yeah. Well, Floyd is not supposed to be that big.
No, Floyd 155 is his peak.
Yeah, but that's the most. He was heavy then. He was at his prime at 125, 130. And there, like, I'm not sure anybody beats him if he's 125, 130 because he had knockout power at that size. Mm-hmm. At 147, he became a defensive fighter because he really didn't have the same power at that rate, at that weight. A lot of people tend to try to use that as a way to discredit him. But if you really look at it the right way, it really shows his greatness because he reinvented himself at a different weight class, which is what a lot of fighters fail to be able to do. But so that's enough praise for Mayweather for today. Because
before we get off it, my question to those people, and if you guys get in the comment section, if you thought it was fixed, let us know why he would need to fix that fight. Because that's what I'm trying to figure out.
You know,
because
it's
that
crazy.
kid can't beat him in a boxing match. Like, if y'all think that, come on. I know people watching this show are smarter than that. That kid can't beat 50, 51-0, whatever you want to call it, Floyd Mayweather. He ain't the one at 120, whatever he is, fighting Mayweather.
Here's my problem. Here's my issue, and what I wonder about. I wonder why Ryzen would, and some people pronounce it Risen, some people can pronounce it Ryzen. I have to talk to somebody who like absolutely knows to find out the correct pronunciation. But I'm trying to figure out why. Now, this kid is their biggest star. He is their guy that they are looking at to be like their cash cow, right? He is a pop culture sensation, so to speak, in Japan. I'm trying to figure out why they would sacrifice him.
Yeah, why humiliate him like this?
For a single payday from a guy who's not going to commit to you long term. He's 40, he can't. And everybody knows that's not Floyd's MO. Floyd did this because you paid him $9 million to do something that was no risk to him.
Right. He probably didn't train a lick.
He didn't.
Beyond just keeping himself in shape.
In normal shape.
Yeah.
And Floyd genetically, I'm telling you, is strange.
Right.
I'm looking at him training for another fight. I can't remember which one it is, but he's like eating Taco Bell.
Yeah.
And he still looks like that. And I'm literally looking at him eating Taco Bell. So he didn't say he ate Taco Bell. He did a video of him going to the drive-thru and eating Taco Bell.
Well, because when you train for that long, the body's all about adaptation. Yeah. And his body is adapted to be in ridiculous shape. He don't go through off season. Yeah. Like Floyd is, I talked to my mother about this with MMA fighters. Like in between, some MMA fighters stop looking like professional fighters in the first 2 months after they fight. They go way off the deep end, way off the bandwagon. So what they don't realize is they don't get that lifelong adaptation to being in fantastic shape, up and down like that. And that's what people talk about with the weight cutting too. You are fighting in an unadapted state with your body. So the people that are nearer to their weight have an advantage if they train year round.
Absolutely.
Right? Rather than the people who are bringing in power from the next division, but then cutting 20 pounds the last 2 weeks before the fight.
Yeah, if they have the proper nutrition program and they cut properly, they do have an advantage once they get into the octagon or the ring because they rehydrate up so much.
Yeah.
But there is a downside to that because if it doesn't work properly, even when you rehydrate, you're still not as strong as you would be. Renan Barao is a perfect example. He was killing himself to get to 135. And he had a really bad episode where he passed out ahead of the TJ Dillashaw fight and got really sick, and he's never been the same since.
Because the human body, nobody's made to cut that kind of weight. But you can adapt yourself to any weight if you stick to it for a long time. So speaking of strong, on our next topic, we got a guy who's thought to be artificially strong. In John Jones versus Alex Gustafsson. What'd you think of that fight, B?
I really wasn't surprised, and we talked about this a little bit last week. How we both thought that it would be easier.
We said this would happen.
Yeah, it would be easier.
In fact, specifically, John said, if my camp gets you for a second fight, it's a bad look. And that was pretty much what I said was, and he actually talked about the fourth round too in the pre-fight. I said in that fourth round, he figured this kid out.
Yes.
And he was just too out of shape to beat the hell out of him. Yeah. I mean, he did beat the hell out of him. But it wasn't enough to put him down.
Yeah.
Because
it was enough to put him down. I don't know how he stayed up from those elbows.
Yeah. Well, John gave him a break.
Yeah.
Literally, that's why. If John, there was a point where Gustafsson wanted to leave this world and John leaned on him instead of hitting him. Gustafsson had no ability to hit him back.
I think John might have been a little tired because of the lack of training. Because usually John's finishing instinct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought last time that's what was happening. So why don't you break down the fight from your end, and I'll give you my analysis.
What I and kind of to piggyback on what John was when he said that, first of all, let's go back. You want to know why John Jones is, in my opinion, the greatest fighter to ever live? John is the perfect storm.
Mm-hmm.
John is physically gifted in terms of athleticism. Like, he's not the fastest guy, but he's not slow. He's not the strongest guy, but he can definitely hurt you. But from a physical standpoint, in terms of dimensions, he's an enigma. You know what I mean? Like, to be that tall and lean in the right areas to the point where he doesn't have massive issues cutting weight. Also to be a guy who shapes up and cuts up pretty easy. Like, when he gets ready,
yeah,
I'm gonna do it. And if you think that that's about steroids, then you don't really understand conditioning and the way that the body is made, because the way he gets himself into shape is not about steroids. It's about just genetically his body responds to weight training better than most.
And to piggyback off of that, we talk a lot on this show about, we don't categorize all athletic skills. When we talk about athleticism in basketball, we generally mean speed and jumping, and sometimes we bring up strength. But other skills like your eyes and your flexibility do matter.
Yeah.
And John, when it comes to his eyes and his flexibility, is elite.
Yeah.
At that size, is incredibly flexible and incredible eyes.
Yeah.
Like in fact, that was my point with the fourth round in the Gustafsson thing. But from that point on, his eyes changed. He could see the way the kid's body was moving. And if you look at the fight, even hits that he seemed to take, look at when he starts to react in that fight. It's because of his eyes, man. Like, the guy starts to throw a kick and John already gets in a position to block it, even though he's too out of shape to do what he knows he should do. He's still moving to block it way ahead of time.
It's his spatial intelligence.
Absolutely.
He has
well said.
Uncanny spatial intelligence. And you can't teach anybody spatial intelligence.
That's tough.
You just have it or you don't. Like, me being able to absolutely gauge when you're close enough to touch me, which is not just about how far away you're standing. It's a gauge. It's an internal gauge of how fast you are, how long your arms are, and how quickly I can react to it, in conjunction to how close we're standing. And mentally, a person with great spatial intelligence is processing all of that information like this.
Yeah.
On the fly. And that's what he does. And so I thought that in this fight, John already knew exactly what was going to happen. He said, I'm going to nullify the boxing, and I'm going to nullify the boxing by staying at the distance where I can do damage and that he cannot. And I know that he wants to use his footwork, but I am going to cautiously stalk him. And I am going to change levels. I'm going to give him multiple things to think about. I'm going to kick at the legs. I'm going to give you a couple half-speed takedown attempts. Not because I really want to get the takedown at this point, but just because I want you to think about defending the lower half.
Also, that with the takedown attempts, I think what was happening was, honestly, it was a Street Fighter. It was, I'm going to stand outside in kicking range so that you can't punch me when I'm far. And when I'm close, I'm going to get close into grappling range.
Yes.
And we're going to stay in exactly. The mid-range is dead to you.
Yes.
We're going to play in my range the entire time. I don't need to take you down because I'm just cutting off your punches. And I think I have the advantage if we do start wrestling. So I'm fine clinching and grappling. Right, exactly. Well, you know, a lot of people didn't think so in the first fight. They thought that Gustafsson's takedown defense was too much for John. He got the real takedown in that fight. So, you know, some people had doubts. And that's why I say John didn't think so. We think it was because John was out of shape and not taking the fight seriously. But if people have the other argument, they have evidence to back that argument up if they want to make it. But yeah, I think it was a combination. I think that was another reason he went to the grappler, is to inside your punching range, outside your punching range. But when you want to punch, that's not happening. We ain't having a boxing match.
It's not. We're not having a boxing match. And so Gustafson got a little impatient, and I think that I think in some ways it was a good impatient, because at the direction of his corner, they told him, you got to put pressure, you got to throw more shots. And I didn't hear them say that, but I know that they probably said that because I know I understand who his corner guys are, and just their track record, and then also looking at the way he came out in the third round. He came out looking to press the action because he already knew, I'm getting picked apart. I'm getting tired because John is jabbing me at the body. He's giving me some body kicks. And Gustafson doesn't have great wind. He doesn't have great wind. And if you poke at that midsection, he's going to start to wear down. And John, I'm telling you, like I said, you want to know why John is the best. Listen to the way he broke down the fight at the end. It was straight. Me and my son were listening to him like, this is just straight game talk. I'm talking about, like, if you were watching or listening to LeBron James talk about the last 5 plays of a game and how he saw it and why he made these decisions, why he went here with the ball. John Jones was doing exactly that, talking about how he just dismantled a world-class fighter. And it was really, I give you you want to know how good John was defensively in this fight? In the first fight, Gustafson landed an average of 22 significant strikes per round. He landed a total of 22 significant strikes in the entire second fight.
Yeah, and what's important about that also is, in the first fight, John was chasing him, and in this fight, Gustafson was the guy who was forced to chase. And my brother asked me, he's like, "Why is Gustafson not being more aggressive?" And I said, "Well, actually, what's happening is he's being too aggressive. He's missing too many punches." This was before his corner said it, right? I said he's missing too many punches, but he has a serious problem on his hands because he's getting hurt at every part of the fight right now. Everything hurts him. Like, just because he's not staggering and stumbling, understand everything hurts him, right? So he's getting hit by everything John wants to hit him with, and he's not getting anything in return.
Yes.
And he knows
that's a taxing thing mentally as a fighter.
Well, he has to change. He has to change, right? So he's trying to be more aggressive, but his problem is, in order to be more aggressive, he has to move into kicking range. And he's tired of getting kicked already. He knows he can't get kicked anymore. This is before his leg really got hurt. Once his leg got hurt, he was absolutely done in that fight. You know, it was 100% over. But similar to the last fight, that was a bill John started paying down on from the very, very beginning of the fight. I think Gustafson had absolutely no chance. I think he was completely outclassed. And this is not surprising to me at all, the way it happened. Honestly, I don't think any of it was surprising, like, in the least.
No, I was not surprised. I was not surprised at all.
Which we both called on the show that it could go this way.
Yeah, I knew that if John was John, that was it. You know, I mean, you can't give a guy like John a second look at you when especially I didn't like what Gustafson was saying. And a lot of times fighters say things but during the pre-fight, and it's not indicative of the way they're going to approach the fight.
Right, he's trying to sell a fight. So,
but no, not even the braggadocious stuff. But what he said, he was talking about his approach, and he was like, "I don't think I got to change nothing. I was getting to him." I'm like, "Bro, you underestimating who you fighting, man. That you're not only underestimating John. Greg Jackson and these guys, is a heck of a camp, bro.
John figured you out in the ring last time.
They
sat down for months and break you down. You cannot come the same way against this guy.
Not against this guy and that team. And that's what he meant by, if you give us a rematch. So I got great coaches and they have the greatest tool. without him heaping praise on himself. That's essentially what he meant. With my physical gifts and my own octagon IQ, mixed with genius level trainers and coaches about this sport, if I look at you twice, with all things created equal, with me still being who I am and those guys still being who they are, I'm going to get you. And we haven't seen the light heavyweight yet who, you know, I mean, there's no question in my mind that John would win the heavyweight title if he moves up. There's no question. There's no question in my mind. I mean, John would come in at probably 235.
He'd probably come in heavier than that.
You know, I think
he. I mean, you know why? Because he likes to blow up. Because he loves bodybuilding. So I think John, maybe he would come down afterwards, but I think there will be a while where he's walking around.
235 is a lot of weight for him.
It is a lot of weight. I agree. I agree. I'm just saying he's 6'4".
Yeah.
It's, you know, because honestly, if he put anything on them little chicken legs of his, that's 10 pounds right there.
Right. Yeah, because John at 235 is going to look like the Incredible Hulk.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, again, he could throw a good 10, 15 pounds on those legs.
Yeah.
Without changing the upper body and be.
He probably has a hard time gaining on the legs.
He might. He
probably has because they just little, man. He got Deontay Wilder legs.
Yeah, they are tiny. He look like he'd be skipping all the leg days.
Yeah,
I know he don't.
He all right, but it looks like
he kicked too hard and moved too well. But man,
I've seen him squat. I've seen him squat. So I don't know why they don't. You know what I'm saying? I don't know why it doesn't. But it whatever it is, it's working.
Yeah. No shade on that. Keep them just how they are because they're doing their job just well.
Speaking of doing your job well, man, I'm not gonna lie, man. I am not gonna lie. You know, I've been writing about MMA for some years. And you know, you try to be impartial all the time. You try to be, but you know, if you're writing about a sport, you're probably a fan of it. And if you're a fan of it, you're probably a fan of certain people, right? But you know, you try to keep it a little bit on the wraps and the writing and stuff like that. But I really love Chris Cyborg. I do. But what happened at first and foremost, let me say this. I don't think there's any question at all that Amanda Nunes is now the greatest female mixed martial artist in the history of the sport. I think it's indisputable.
Can I address that before we move on? Because I really do want to talk about the fight, but this is kind of a separate topic.
Yes.
I don't personally disagree with you, but Cyborg has a great point. How can I sit up here and win for over a decade, 13 years, lose one fight, and all of a sudden she's the greatest?
Because she beat you.
I understand that, but she's like, let me get her again. Yeah. She's saying, let me get her again, and it'll be different. And I think that she has a right to feel that way, which is why I don't want to hands down categorically give it to Nunes, even though, as we will get into on this discussion, I agree with you. Even though I think it might be true, I think Cyborg deserves another fight to prove that it's true.
Absolutely. I don't
and I think we don't have enough evidence officially, even though my opinion is what you said. I think Nunes is the best. I think we don't have enough evidence to say that Cyborg is according to Cyborg's arguments that she is not still the best. Like, she can still claim off night, she caught me, let me correct it, I'll prove I'm better than her. And hypothetically, and this is my point, if she were to beat Nunes, then she'd be right. And if that's the case, then we don't have enough evidence.
If she fights Nunes again and beats her, she has every right to say that now that there's a discussion to me. If she fights Nunes in a rematch, which I totally think she deserves, just regardless of what Dana White's saying. But I totally think she deserves a rematch. And if she were to win, then now their series is even. Because I think it comes down to them. I think they're the only two that are in the discussion.
100%.
They're the only two. So to me, since they're the only two that are in the discussion, it comes down to their head-to-head meetings. And if you consider Amanda Nunes hadn't fought above 135 pounds with the UFC against any of these top competition, and she comes up 10 pounds and slays the dragon. To me, it unless Cyborg can beat her, then for now, I'm not saying, when I say that Amanda Nunes is the greatest female mixed martial artist of all time, that's not a end all be all statement, because it's not over. It's not done with any finality, because neither of their careers is done. Right. But as of right now, Amanda Nunes is the greatest. I mean, you got to look at resume. She's the only female mixed martial. I think she's the only only UFC fighter in history to have 4 wins over current or former champions. She knocked out Ronda Rousey in 48 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
She defeated Miesha Tate. She beat Valentina Shevchenko twice. And now you knock out Cyborg in 51 seconds.
So let's talk about what went on in the ring for a second. So here was my thing coming in. Now, were you surprised? Because I was not surprised.
I was flabbergasted, shocked.
Let me tell you why I wasn't surprised.
Okay, let me say this. Here's why I sometimes knowing too much makes you closes your mind.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? And so in retrospect, am I surprised? No. When I think about it, does it make sense? Yes. But before having the result in front of me, the thought of that is like, no way. You know, you just, because, you know, if you're a person, you followed the sport all this time, you've written about it, all this different stuff. You see this person who hasn't lost, who's mowed down everybody, who's 10 pounds heavier than somebody else, who hasn't fought at this weight, who I've seen dominated. I've seen Amanda Nunes dominated. Kat Zingano dominated Amanda Nunes, dominated her, busted her face all up, ground and pound from the top. Mm-hmm. So you see those images, and that goes into your head, and you're like, okay, I see a piece of, but styles make fights.
And that was a long time ago too. She's a better fighter than she was.
She's a much better fighter than she was then, and much more confident. But styles make fights.
Yeah.
Right? Styles make fights. And what I think we found out is that I don't know that you can beat Amanda Nunes if you don't take her down.
Okay, so let me get into it a little bit. The reason I wasn't surprised, and you're probably not going to like this at all, women's MMA is in a younger state than men's MMA.
Yes.
So it has to go through the same evolution to some degree. Mm-hmm. And in men's MMA, we had a lot of guys who today wouldn't be well-rounded enough to win, but they were able to win for various reasons that we got information on. Mm-hmm. And women's combat sports in general isn't as old as men's combat sports. Mm-hmm. So my only question going into this fight was, when it comes to women fighters, I think women's MMA is the best we've seen women fight each other. Mm-hmm. And Cyborg and Nunes and the women at the top of the sport are the best female fighters of any category that I've personally seen. I think it is moving forward rapidly as their training goes more and more side by side with the men. They got people crossing over camps. They're getting information faster. Their training is starting to look the same. But there are things we've not found out about women fighting each other. And my one question was, when you go up in weight class, what gives first, the chin or the power? Because with men, we know that power can last about, I would say arguably 2 divisions up. You get about 15 pounds up.
There's some aberrations, but
aberrations, right? But for the most part, 15 pounds up and you don't have knockout power anymore.
I think, honestly, that's actually, it's less than that.
It could be. It's
less than that. It's less than that. It's actually usually more like 5 to 7 pounds.
Usually. Yeah, but if somebody, like a guy like John, who career-wise could have fought at 185 because he was so skinny, who will probably have knockout power up to 230, 240, 250 because of how he's built, how accurate he is, and the fact that men's upper body strength has a higher ceiling proportionately.
Mhm.
So but also what happens is as men get bigger, their heads start getting bigger too. Like we talked about with McGregor and Mayweather.
And Bevan Lewis. Did you see that Bevan Lewis Uriah Hall fight? Bevan
I actually
Lewis.
haven't seen that one yet.
Oh,
I've been
Bevan
meaning to
Lewis.
catch up to that
Bevan
one.
Lewis has to wear a size 10 hat. I mean, and I got a big head, but Devin Lewis, I'm trying to tell you, he looked like he had on like a helmet strapped around his
Right.
own head. It was a massive.
And a
But
guy
anyway,
with a head like that is a different physical thing to overcome. Women are built differently as much as we're learning about this as time goes on in every category. So my question was, can Nunes move up in weight class legitimately? Because I think she's a much, much, much better fighter than Chris Cyborg. And if she can move into that weight class legitimately, I think she's not just going to win, but I think she could beat her up because Chris Cyborg's magical power is really the fact that physically she's very overwhelming. And we've seen that with men before. And then somebody comes along who can withstand that and is a better fighter. And then that guy, everybody else is like, oh, okay. You know, and they just start fighting different people who don't get outmatched that way, or they figure out what the answer is. I thought that was very possible in this fight because I really think that from a fighting standpoint, they are not in the same class as fighters. But that Chris Cyborg's physical advantages are so much that she doesn't need to be a better fighter than you to maul you. And that's why that's the main reason I agree with you when you say Nunes is the greatest. Now, Cyborg's thing is basically, I didn't know she could hit that hard. I'll let her punch me in the face. I'll approach her differently next time and it'll go different. I don't think she has the skill. Same as what you were saying before. When you hear Nunes break down the fight, you hear what she's saying. She's talking about her coaches. She's talking about her camp. She's saying she's going to fight this way. She's going to create these openings. All I have to do is wait, get the openings, and execute. Cyborg, she's talking nonsense, basically. She sounds like somebody who, yeah, she can fight. I'm not saying she's bad. Obviously, she's beaten all these women before. But what are we saying? There's only so many women at this size that can even fight. So the information is a little skewed because she's always at such a great physical advantage. That's like if we had a 275-pound man, like if LeBron James or Zion Williamson just started fighting MMA and they fighting a bunch of guys at 235, and eventually we just have to be like, we got to find some big dudes to fight you. You know, we can't really call you the greatest because you're at such a physical advantage. Yeah, you're the best because you're in an advantage. And I think that's where Cyborg was. And what happened with Nunes, I was not surprised because from every technical striking standpoint, I feel like Nunes is superior. I feel like she has every advantage from a technical standpoint. And the fact that she took 9 months off to build that strength properly and didn't just, eat a bunch of Wendy's and then show up in 3 months, I think that was what did it. And I wouldn't doubt if Cyborg could never beat that woman. I think Nunes could beat her 5 times in a row. I don't think it was a fluke. I think she was just outmatched.
Well, most of that I disagree with.
I figured you would.
Most of that I disagree with. I do. Amanda Nunes is a technically sound striker with big time power.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, she is a very good grappler, but not a great grappler.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Cyborg lost this fight, and I'm not saying she wouldn't lose again if she changes, but she lost this fight because she did not respect her opponent properly. Now, maybe she respects her in a rematch and still loses, because I think the biggest thing that we saw was that Amanda Nunes could hurt Cyborg, and that's what we weren't sure about, right? So now we know that, right? So now Cyborg knows that. So now in a rematch, when you have the proper respect for your opponent and you approach it as such, now what happens? The thing with Cyborg is Cyborg had never been stunned. Never. She lost the first fight ever that she ever had, and it was because she got caught in a submission. She wasn't hurt, okay? And it was the first pro fight she'd ever had. She hadn't lost a fight since then. As you said, she mauled people. And the technique that she does have she hadn't had to use it
Mm-hmm.
in a long time. She hadn't had to use it. But Cyborg is a high level boxer. High level. Like, I train and spar with Clarissa Shields, who is the greatest female boxer in the world right now, and can not be embarrassed in those fights. She doesn't beat her, but she's not embarrassed, to the point where professional boxing trainers are validating that Cyborg has an opportunity to do some
Mm-hmm.
things as a boxer. When she fought Nunes on Saturday, her concept was, I'm going to tear this little girl to pieces. She's too small. She's never been hit by anybody like me. But she did not realize that this girl can pop. And when she got hurt, because it was such a foreign place for her, and such a situation that she never dealt with, she did not know how to respond. The first time she got stuck, you saw her get dazed. But what immediately kicked in for her was, I got to go get it back. I got to go get it back. So she wants to immediately start to land. And that is the wrong approach.
But Nunez's camp knew that was going to be her approach.
And I
so
bet
it wasn't a reaction. It was a game plan.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. And it's not an illogical thought. If you smack a bully in the mouth, usually the first time a bully gets hit back really well and really good, it shuts them down, or it makes them go into a more vulnerable state, and whatever that looks like. And I'm not calling Cyborg like a bully in real life,
Yeah,
but
I know what
in
you
a
mean.
cage,
Overwhelming people. Yeah.
overwhelming people. And she didn't know what to do when she got hurt. And instead, you left yourself more open, because what Amanda Nunes did was, she honed in on a very simple concept. Cyborg likes to throw winging hooks. She doesn't throw straight shots as much. She depends everything almost on power shots lately. Now, that wasn't the way it started, but that's where she ended up, because she was mauling people. She was taking a couple straight shots from people. Like, Holly Holm landed some jabs and straights, but Holly couldn't hurt her. So Cyborg has gotten accustomed to, just let me get in punching range. And once I get in punching range, you cooked. But now you're fighting somebody that you can't oversimplify the approach. And I think by the time she realized that, if she ever realized that, if the fight was already over. So I'm not 100% sure that in a rematch, Cyborg makes it any different. But I am saying that the way this fight went down, it was over so fast that I'm not ready to say Cyborg can't beat her in a rematch, but you can't take the victory away from Nunes. She did what she was supposed to do. She knocked her out in 51 seconds. And all credit goes to her. This was not a fluke. Two people got in a cage and one person smashed the other. There's no fluke in that. She didn't slip,
and the reason I differentiate, because sometimes people just get caught. I don't feel like Chris Cyborg just got caught, because if you look at the fight, Cyborg is throwing wild punches. Nunes is moving, looking at her face, and then putting it right where it belongs.
She's extremely accurate as a puncher. She always has been. She always has been that. And accuracy.
I don't think Chris Cyborg can punch with her.
You know, I put it like this: power-wise, I still think Cyborg's a harder puncher. The thing of it is, she didn't land.
Right.
So that's the thing. But here's the thing: Cyborg has to go back to basics with this. But what we don't know is, what is the psychological impact of having lost this fight in this way.
Well, she seems fine.
And I wrote that.
I wrote
that. I said she seems fine, but only she knows what's really going on in there. Francis Ngannou's, I sat and talked in front of Francis Ngannou after he lost to Stipe Miocic, and I interviewed him ahead of his fight with Derek Lewis. and he seemed fine.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was confident. I asked him about another fight on the card. He got offended, said you should be asking him about his fight and this, that, and the third. He seemed fine. But when he got in the cage, he was super tentative.
Yeah.
And later on, he admitted the loss bothered me.
Yeah, it didn't get to him until he got in the ring. That's probably what happened.
And only
That's
he
what
knows.
happened. Yeah, you get inside that octagon, you see that crowd, you smell them smells, and then it comes back to you.
And it comes back.
And you could be right about Cyborg. She could get in there and get that PTSD, especially if she's facing off against the same woman.
Yeah, and see, this is why combat sports is different than other sports.
Yep.
Right? You know, if I lose by 45 points in a basketball game, we lost by 45 today. There's no fear. The fear factor isn't there. Like, we lost by 45 points. It's a basketball game. Nobody got hurt, you know. But in combat sports, when you get routed, the equivalent of a 45-point blowout in combat sports is a hospital visit.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like, yeah, it's a tough thing. But like I said, man, I don't think there's any question at all. Amanda Nunes is the GOAT at this point. I do think Cyborg could still have something to say about that in the future if she gets an opportunity. But right now, I think she's the GOAT. And GOAT is a question, is a thing that goes around a lot. A lot of people are always talking about.
It does go around a lot.
I think that GOAT is probably the most overused term in sports. Like, GOAT is the sports equivalent of SMH, shaking my head. Like, because if I see one more person shaking their head SMH on social media, I'm gonna shake something. It's just it's bad. But so LeBron James.
You know what? Before you even talk, man, I hate this because
I hate it too.
I you know what I hate the most is we probably gonna agree on a big chunk of this.
I'm pretty sure.
But there's gonna be a part we might disagree on. So I'm gonna let you say your piece. We're gonna get stuck into it.
You know what? I think I want you to say your piece first.
You want me to say my piece?
Yeah, I
okay.
want you to say your piece first.
I'm not gonna get okay. You know what? I'm gonna get right into it because here's the thing, man. There's two sides to this. Mm-hmm. There's what he said and whether or not people feel like he had the right to say it. Mm-hmm. So first, and for me, they're only slightly tied together because anybody could believe they're the best. You just got to go out there and prove it.
Yeah. On
that note, this is being compared a lot to Michael Jordan and the speech that he gave in his third championship when everybody was like, "Are you the GOAT? You know you're the GOAT, right?" And he wouldn't come out and say it. And people saying, well, in private, he would say he was the GOAT and he was just playing politics and all that other stuff.
Yep.
Not every, but most great performers think they're the best at some point while they're performing. Mm-hmm. But it's different to proclaim that you're the best. Mm-hmm. Because you thinking you're the best is basically what you need to go out and be the best. Mm-hmm. If you go out thinking somebody's better than you, you might perform like second best on default and then fall from that. If you go out trying to perform better than anybody's ever performed ever, you might have a chance to be the best. So you need to go out with that mentality every night and you need to really believe it. Mm-hmm. And if LeBron really believes that, kudos to him.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
However, let's put this in context real quick, just in terms of Mike, who is the GOAT. Michael Jordan was thought to be the best player in the league long before he won his first championship. The Chicago teams I'm talking about by his peers. Larry Bird said he's better than me. Larry Bird is widely regarded as the greatest trash talker of all time. And before Michael Jordan won anything, he was like, nah, he's too much.
He said he's God in basketball shoes.
God in basketball shoes. And he said that in a couple of different ways. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? He didn't just say that once offhand. He's like, nah, y'all don't get it. And remember, to keep this in context, these guys lost to Michael in that USA basketball thing.
Who?
Michael is a 21-year-old.
Oh, yeah.
A bunch of them.
Yeah.
So they knew this was coming.
Yeah.
Like, they were like, this guy's different. And the Chicago teams not only were so bad, but also the Eastern Conference was filled with tremendous talent. I mean, people who had won championships would win multiple championships. People who should be going deep into the playoffs every year, Hall of Fame players on several teams, like well-coached teams. The East was absolutely stacked, and the Bulls were absolutely trash outside of Michael Jordan. People forget it wasn't just Scottie who came over. That roster got shaken up from his rookie year to the year that they got Scottie. You know what I mean? Charles Oakley, Bill Cartwright.
Yeah,
like,
it was 87, 88 was when Scottie and Horace came.
Right.
And Mike's rookie year was 84, 85.
Right. So, which, I mean, so they went through a lot, and then, you know, coaching changes, all that stuff. So the Bulls were not built to win, and then they got Michael. They were horrible. They got Michael, and then they started building to win from that point on. So these guys were getting dominated by Michael Jordan. And then when he was winning those championships, it looked like he couldn't be beat. That's another thing people don't understand. Everything was the Golden State Warriors, but it was just Michael. Like, yeah, Scottie's a great player. No question. Scottie's a great player. But it wasn't like Magic and Kareem. Magic and Kareem were both MVP guys. They were both Mount Rushmore guys. And it was even Kevin McHale, Larry Bird, and Parrish.
James Worthy was amazing.
James Worthy, not a slouch, right? Yeah. Scottie Pippen, offensively, he wasn't at his peak when they won those first 3 championships. He got better and better as time went on. He was a guy who was great at defense and offensively was more of a system guy than a guy who would dominate you. He didn't have like a sick handle. He didn't have a sick 3-point shot. He was a guy who was solid offensively, benefited from a great system, being with Michael Jordan, and was excellent defensively. Deserves all the credit he gets, one of the greatest small forwards of all time. But they were scared of Michael. Michael was the engine that drove everything. So when people asked him that question, they weren't saying, well, maybe this guy's better than you. The difference between Michael Jordan and the second best player in the league at that point was massive. And everybody knew it. The media all knew it. The players all knew it. The fans all knew it. LeBron. The difference between LeBron and the second, third, fourth best player in the league is much smaller than Michael Jordan. Much smaller. And most importantly, he's not even winning that much. He's never dominated the league from a winning standpoint. He has 3 out of 9 championship attempts. Is that what he's on?
He has 3 championships.
Out of 9?
He went to 4 straight with the Heat, and then he went to
he had 8 straight in the Eastern Conference and 1
and then the
before
one 3 out of 9. So he's 33% in the finals.
You're not dominating the league. And listen, I recognize, here's my beef with this. I recognize that the Golden State Warriors, that Kevin Durant made it lopsided. That's too many great players on one team, especially with the shooting, right? I get that. I'm not expecting LeBron James to beat that team without having a team that's at least close to as lopsided. At least close. But if you're the best, it don't need to be exactly close. The thing is, but the difference between him and Kevin Durant is relatively small compared to the difference between Michael Jordan and whoever you think was the second best player at that time. Hakeem, Charles Barkley, I don't care. I don't care who you want to say. It's not even close. So I don't think it's close. I don't even think it's the same universe. Whereas there's certain teams that if I switch LeBron and Kevin Durant, it's going to be basically the same result overall. Even though I think LeBron's a better player, but here's the thing with LeBron, because he said he thinks that made him the GOAT. If LeBron had the offensive game that he has now, but he was physically where he was when he was younger, if he didn't take so long to develop the 3-point skill, to develop the polished post game, to develop the quote unquote clutch gene where, you know, he makes aggressive decisions and is the same player or a better player in the fourth quarter rather than less of himself, which he often was when he was physically the best player in the league, maybe we'd be having that discussion. But it's not. So I don't think it's close. I don't think he's close to being a GOAT because I don't think he's close to being as good as Michael Jordan. I really don't. I think Michael's numbers in a much more defensive era, if you put Michael Jordan here today, he'd average something absolutely stupid, like 40, 45 points a game. And I'm not kidding. I think his mentality, if James Harden could score 40 points a night, Mike will probably score 50. I'm not kidding about that. So that having been said, it's about his right to say it. Now, I think he's wrong because it's from a standpoint of you're not dominating the league as a winner, and it's a team sport, and the point is to win. And that's what Kobe said. You got to find a way to get it done. I'm not trying to hear your excuses because I had to find a way to get it done. With no Shaq, no nothing, I had to figure out how to beat all these great teams. You figure out how to beat all these great teams.
Oh my God, I'm so tired of Kobe.
Hey, fair enough. But it is a team sport, and the whole thing is to dominate. At the end of the day, whatever your reasoning is, whatever you think about what teams were, this, that, the other, on paper, Michael Jordan dominated the league. Once he started winning, it was basically, yeah, he took a year off, but 6 straight years of just looking completely unbeatable while they was going through it. Whereas LeBron has lost much more than he's won, and has been, when he wins, when he's been the favorite, he's won. When he's not been the favorite, he hasn't won, except for a series where their best defensive player gets injured. Gets suspended, and their center gets injured. And most people think they wouldn't have beat Golden State if Draymond didn't get suspended and Bogut didn't get hurt. So in terms of his right to say it, what I don't like is all of the old school guys saying, you don't say that. No, it's not you don't say that. It's just if you say that, you got to back it up. One of the great pleasures of being the baddest person on the planet at whatever you do is that if you come out and say that, you challenge everyone else to come at you and prove you wrong. My only problem with it is that every time LeBron James doesn't win a championship, he's been proven wrong.
Okay. Are you done?
I'm finished.
Okay. All right. So here's my thing. It's okay. Several points here. I'm going to start off before I get into how I feel about this whole thing. I'm gonna talk about what I disagreed with. Right. So first and foremost, I don't think the gap between Michael Jordan and Hakeem Olajuwon was as large as you make it appear to be. Hakeem was just a different dude. And I think that you can look at statistics, you can look at his impact on his teammates, you can look at a lot of things. But Hakeem Olajuwon was the second best player in that era. And I think that Michael was a better player for sure. But I don't think that the gap was 2 days long as you made it appear. That's the first thing. Second thing, I also think you downplayed Scottie a little bit too much on the offensive end. You said Scottie didn't have this sick handle. Well, Scottie didn't have a Kyrie handle in terms of style, but in terms of efficiency and running an offense, Scottie might be the greatest point forward that ever played the game.
I said he was a good system guy.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a system.
I said his offensive skills were great for that system, but people were afraid of Michael.
I think his offense. I think they were afraid of both. Not obviously more Michael. Obviously more because Mike is the greatest player, right? So obviously more Michael. But I remember hearing people like Reggie Miller say, Scottie Pippen is the only guy I've ever played against who could dominate the game with 10 points. He said that because in addition to 10 points, he's got 9 rebounds, he's got 9 assists, he's got 4 steals and 3 blocks. And all you feel like while you're on the floor is where is he at? So where is he at defensively? Where is he at in transition? All of those things. So like I admit Mike was the greatest player for sure, right? But Scottie was much more than a system offensive guy and a spectacular defender. Scottie was an absolute complete player who could have and would have excelled in any system because he was just that great. So that's the other thing. The other thing is about, it always amazes me that people point to LeBron's finals record and the futility, the 3 of 9, right? But they never point to the years that Michael Jordan didn't even make it to the finals. The Bulls didn't even make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. And I'm a lifetime Bulls fan. I've loved the Bulls forever. But the Bulls went to 6 finals and they won them all. Absolutely, they won them all. I think it is the greatest 8-year stretch in the past 30 years that we've seen in basketball. But Mike's career with the Bulls started in 84-85 and it ended in 97-98. They went to 6 championships during that time. What about the years that Mike didn't get his team that far at all? Okay, so I don't think while three out of 9 is still.
Can I answer that question though?
Yeah.
That was embedded in the description because LeBron James didn't have to get past championship teams to get to the finals. LeBron James was in the much weaker conference for most of his career, and when the conference did have championship contenders, he often didn't make the finals. And the thing is, the way they formed the Heat was to take the best player off of one team in the East, the best player off of another team in the East, and put them on the same team as the best player on another team from the East, which effectively turned 3 contending franchises into 1 contending franchise, which is when LeBron James's final streak started. And the East remained extremely weak until this year, actually. So Michael Jordan was in the reverse situation. Michael Jordan was played out as, well, if LeBron was in the West, he wouldn't be making it every year, which is what most people thought. And
yeah,
that's extremely different.
I don't know that we can definitively say that. I mean, that's what people think or say, but the Boston Celtics were constructed similarly, and they were still together during Miami's early runs. When Miami was battling their way through the East, they were beating Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, Ray Allen.
They were old though.
Yeah, but they had just won a championship the year before, 09, 10.
Yeah, but Kevin Durant, Kevin Garnett had already had like a massive knee injury at that point. Like they were old.
That was the year after they won the championship. It was the year after the Celtics win in 09-10, right? Or is that Kobe? No, Kobe. I think
Kobe won last. Kobe won last. They beat they went to the finals.
08-09, the Celtics win. But what I'm saying is the Celtics had went to the finals, the NBA finals that year before. The next year, LeBron, Miami, Dwayne Wade, Bosh, they beat them. My whole point with that is because I want to get to what he said, but my whole point with that is that I don't think you can't necessarily compare the eras like that with just a complete black and white type of a comparison. You can't say, well, he beat these guys, and so he didn't beat these guys, so this automatically makes Mike's career better.
Well, can I address that for a second? Because I think there are parallels that people are making to justify this. Because to say wins and losses in the playoffs, full stop, no additional information, is not enough for a discussion. But when we get into the specifics of it, when we look at the Michael Jordan teams that didn't make it to the finals, and we look at the teams that beat them, most people say, well, he was greatly outmatched in those contests. Undebatably for most of it, that he couldn't have done more. But when you look at LeBron's loss to Dallas in the finals, when you look at LeBron's loss to Orlando, and even his loss to Boston, not that people thought he should have beat Boston, but that because of what is widely speculated as off the court issues, it looked like he gave up against Boston. Even though his stats look good, if you watch the game, he was clearly out of it, as it were. And some people had accused him of quitting. Those were 3 occasions where people felt like he could have done more and didn't do enough to do better. Like nobody holds the San Antonio loss against him because the San Antonio Spurs were a much better team. The first finals loss of LeBron's career. Nobody really holds that against him. Nobody really holds it against him when he lost to Golden State when Kyrie and Kevin Love went down because they were greatly overmatched. So it's not just about wins and losses. It's about when LeBron, and LeBron has said this in the past himself, when he was supposed to be the best player in the league, he didn't hold up his end of the bargain sometimes. And he said one of his greatest regrets is not facing Kobe in the finals because he was in his quote-unquote athletic prime on a first-place team and didn't manage to get to the finals. And they lost to the Orlando Magic. You know what I'm saying? Who was not a great team. It was just a spotty Eastern Conference. Dwight Howard was the best player on that team, and he was a beast at that time. But who was their second best player?
Jameer Nelson had an outstanding year.
It wasn't outstanding. He had a good year.
He had.
I watched almost every game because I enjoyed watching that team.
If you look at Jameer Nelson's proficiency through that year. I'm talking about as a passer, as a guy who took care of the ball, and as a high level 3-point shooter. He had a phenomenal year that year. I'm talking about a year that across the board translates in every era. I mean, if you got a point guard that shoots over 50% from the field, shoots 45%
By the
from
way,
3-point range,
mm-hmm.
On 4 threes a game.
Wasn't Rayford Alston the point guard that actually played in the finals that year? Wasn't Jameer Nelson hurt for part of that?
I think Jameer Nelson got hurt in part of the postseason. He was hurt for a lot of the some of the second half, but he had a fantastic year that year. He had a great year. He made the All-Star team that year. It's the only year he ever made the All-Star team.
Mm-hmm. How much did he average in the points and assists?
16. He averaged about 17 points, just under 17. 16.7. He averaged 5.4 assists. He shot 45% from 3-point range, and 50% from the field, and 89% from the free throw line.
I'm gonna let the people decide if that's a good year or an outstanding year.
That
as far as the second best player on a championship level team.
In the context of what they needed from him, he couldn't have played any better because you have a dominant inside guy. The thing that makes you best as a point guard is in that system, in a system that plays inside out, right? So you have to judge him on the same level as you would a John Paxson or a Kenny Smith, a guy who plays the point guard who's not dominating the ball, so that they're not. So you can't judge his assist as you would on Steve Nash or Jason Kidd, because his role was different. His role was to knock down open threes, to be efficient with the basketball, and to not, like I said, to not turn it over. To average only 2 turnovers a game as a point guard that year, and 17 points, and to knock down 89% of the free throws, 45% of the 3-point shots. That was a phenomenal year. Now he wasn't their next leading scorer. Rashard Lewis averaged 17.7 points a game that year, 40% from 3. Hedo Turkoglu averaged 17 a game with about 36% from the free throw line. But if you ask me who the second best player on the team was, because of everything he had to do, I'd say it was Jameer Nelson.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just the overall floor game. But I want to get to what LeBron said and what my issue with it is, and then we'll move on to the next thing after that. But I don't think that LeBron is the greatest player, right? I believe that Michael Jordan is still the greatest player to ever live, right? And a lot of it is for some of the reasons that you mentioned. LeBron has had, like, Mike hasn't always been great. He's had bad games. He's had bad games and really bad moments. The Orlando Magic, when he came back, I mean, if you followed everything of Michael Jordan's career, you never saw him look worse than he looked there. But there was a logical excuse that we could give him, right, for that whole situation. So, but this is, to me, not about whether or not you believe whether or not LeBron's the best player of all time, if he's the GOAT. To me, this is about, I don't want to say it's something you just don't say, but I am a proponent of, I don't necessarily have a problem with somebody saying I'm the best ever. But the way it came out was kind of like uncharacteristic of who he is publicly, right? So publicly, LeBron never said stuff like this, right? So now he's at this place in his life, right, where now he's feeling himself to the point that now I can, like if Deion Sanders said that, nobody bats an eye, because Deion was telling you he was the greatest the whole time. He told, I'm the best cover corner ever. And for the most part, most people would believe that. He ain't gonna tackle nobody. But as far as just as a cover corner, I've never seen a cornerback shut down a whole entire side of the field like him. Champ Bailey, maybe. Darryl Green's in the conversation, but Deion Sanders, right? So, but that hasn't been LeBron's MO. So my problem,
there's part of a reason for that too, though.
Well, here's my problem with it, though. LeBron has gotten to this place, right, in his life where he is looked at such a high level as a human being, right? That now everyone seems to be looking at him as an authority on a variety of subjects. And while I don't want to say your opinion doesn't matter and shut up and dribble, like I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is sometimes you get to a place where everybody wants your opinion and everybody's listening and hanging on every single word that you say, that it gets to a point where sometimes every little thing that comes to your mind and all the stuff that you want to say doesn't need to be said. Like LeBron is not the kind of guy who is like he's got this. He's not a speech giver. He's not an orator. He's not even a fantastic communicator. Okay, he's decent. He's not horrible, but he's not a fantastic communicator. And the thing of it is every time somebody shoves a mic in your face or gives you a platform to talk, doesn't mean you have to start riffing. And I think you just kind of like sometimes people say things and it makes you cringe. It's cringe worthy, right? And there's different levels of cringe, right? Sometimes a person says something, you go, oh, geez, dude, really? And then other times you're like, probably shouldn't have said that. This was a moderate cringe for me because I'm just like, dude, like, so this is who you are now. Like, so you this comfortable now. So now you're at this place where I'm
my thing with that is this. I don't mind people saying anything as long as you understand that sometimes words have consequences. And when it comes to saying that you're the best at something, usually the consequences are you have to be challenged by all the other people that think they the best. And the problem I'm having with him saying this is at this point, your last championship ring is getting kind of dusty.
I think he has every right to feel the way he feels. I don't like just same as Chris Cyborg, right? Cyborg has every right to create an argument about being the best. Now I might not agree with her argument, but she has a right to say it because she's in the conversation.
But
right?
to your point, if she feels that way, then what's she going to do as a result? She's going to take a rematch or a second fight, depending on how it goes, with Nunes and attempt to beat her. Those are the consequences of her thought.
She's going to take the fight. It's a matter of they're going to give it to her.
Right. Well, I'm saying, and even if they give it to her or they don't give it to her, because I think she's officially not an agent with the UFC right now. Like, I think she's officially a free agent. So
no, I don't think it ended. I didn't see that.
I think her contract may have ended with this fight because she was going to, I think, possibly win and then re-up for more money. I don't know, but you can look that up. Yeah. But either way, even if she fights her again, she's not necessarily going to fight her next. We'll see what they do with that. But either way, the consequences of her actions are to fight Nunes again and prove it. My thing with LeBron is you prove it by winning, but you have not been winning. You know what I'm saying? And even when you did win in what on paper is a relatively even match series, it's somewhat controversial because of Draymond's suspension and to a lesser extent Andrew Bogut's injury. It wasn't like if he had beat Golden State the year before that, that would have been crazy. Them beating Golden State with Draymond missing the game, they was down 3-1. You know, Kyrie Irving. Here's the thing. Let me just finish the point real quick.
Yeah.
You had the tools though. You had Kevin Love. You had Kyrie Irving. You had a bunch of 3-point shooters. Like you had defensive guys playing well. Like you had the tools in that matchup to beat that team. You weren't supposed to be this massive underdog to the 73-win Golden State Warriors, particularly if you're the best player in the world. That's the last time you won the championship, and you haven't won since. How can you prove the consequences of your words without winning? Like, you don't get to say that without winning. And
I feel
they're not going to win this year. So you're not backing it up.
I don't
Say what you
feel
want, but back it up.
I don't feel like I point to different things to say that LeBron is second. Like I think I agree that he's not the greatest that with you. And I'm not sure that Kareem isn't second. Actually, I think Kareem is probably second. But I don't my reasoning for putting him below Mike is different than yours. Mine is based almost entirely on Dallas. Okay. Um, um, and the final year against San Antonio, the final year in Miami against San Antonio. Um, those 2 years to me are more impacting than losing to that Golden State Warriors team. And I'm going to tell you one of the biggest reasons why is because I'm not so sure that if you put Mike on that team with Cleveland and they go against that same Golden State Warriors team, that he doesn't lose too. I'm pretty sure. I think he does. I think he does. So, um, but what I do know is that if you put Mike on the Miami team against
Yeah,
Dallas,
no way.
and if you put Mike on the Miami team against San Antonio, there's no way he loses.
I also think if you put Mike on the Cleveland team against Orlando, he don't lose to no Dwight Howard and Jameer Nelson.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't. He doesn't. And I think, and I hold that more against LeBron than I do any of these other times because you know why? LeBron was in his absolute peak at those times.
Yeah.
And you had faltering moments in your peak. And some of them were not even just about, you know, something didn't go right on the floor. Mentally, I don't think he was where he needed to be. Now, some of that has to do, I think, with the fact that LeBron came straight from high school and LeBron matured later in the NBA, but perhaps at the same time as a man, right? So then that does play a role, but we still gotta look at what it is, you know. But let's shift gears entirely and let's talk about some gaming. Um 2019, I have a really good feeling about 2019 from a video game standpoint. It might very well be the last year for the PlayStation 4. I fully expect to hear a release date for the PS5 in 2020. Um, and I wouldn't be surprised if the next Xbox is announced for somewhere around at a different point of the year, but in 2020 as well, right? So I think that some of these developers, or most of these developers, probably know that it's very, very close. So um, I think we're going to see some people empty a clip in in some of these releases for 2019. So with that said, what do you think? Like I'll tell you of the stuff that I've seen on the calendar, the stuff that I have to split it into genres because you know, I mean, we know what sports video games are coming out. They're pretty much the same ones that always come out. And then I got to go non-sports, right? So the right now, the non-sports video game that I am most looking forward to, and this is I don't know, this could change. I'm gonna say that this can change, but I am really kind of I'm a little bit amped for Metro.
Oh, okay. Uh-oh.
Yeah, I'm kind of I'm interested in Metro. Like I thought the first one was better than I think a lot of like the attention that it got. So I don't know. I can't remember the name of the second one, but it's Metro something. It's not just like Metro 2. I forget what it is,
Mm.
but it's something like that. But I'm interested, right? I'm definitely interested. But from a sports video game standpoint, um, I don't think. Okay, so I'm giving away a lot of my bold predictions for 2019, but one of the things that I expect to see the announcement of a new boxing video game. I don't think it probably won't come out in 2019 unless we're talking about the fourth quarter. But it probably will be more like 2020. I also expect to hear that EA Sports is getting back they're going to put a boxing game out. I just have a feeling that there's going to be some sort of linkage with one of these streaming services
Mm-hmm.
or a promotion where EA is going to get access to the boxers, the licenses of these boxers and the likenesses of these boxers through a deal with the Zone or
Mm-hmm.
through a
But
deal with
that's not
Impact.
going to make it to this console generation. You don't think?
I don't think if it might be smarter
Mm-hmm.
for them to make it a launch title for a PS5 or the next Xbox, but I think that we will hear about it this year.
If we were talking about sports games that are coming out this year, what would be since this is largely a sports show, what would be your most anticipated sports game?
My most anticipated sports video game this year is actually WWE 2K20
Okay.
because I think that we are in for a redo of the engine.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're going to redo the engine, the fighting engine, which is something that has been in need for a while. And I think that this might be the year that we see that. Um, I'm always excited for 2K, the NBA 2K. But I'm also that's the game that I worry the most about.
I'm also worried a bit about 2K because
Yeah.
I feel like 2K is stagnating.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the model of game that they have right now is not super great. I thought they were moving in a decent direction until they got to the 2K League.
Mm-hmm.
And once they hit the 2K League, they stayed in this one spot
Mm-hmm.
that I don't think is very good. I
You
think they
know,
need to break that mold.
one thing I think is the problem is something that I have run into as a writer, right? Um, I'm a collector.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a collector of things. I'm a collector of uh, swim lanes and angles and subjects and topics. It's part of what makes me UniqueMazique because I can touch on a lot of different things. But at times it becomes my biggest flaw
Mm-hmm.
because I'm too many places at one time and not enough of me is in one place, right? And I think that 2K, and maybe this is why I vibe with 2K, right? Because 2K is the same way in a lot, in very similar. Because what makes their game so great is that it's so many different games. It is the collector mode, it's a franchise mode, it's the 5-on-5, it's the my career, it's all of these things, right? And everybody's like, oh boy, you can do all this stuff. But what I think is being lost in the process is focusing on making the core thing, which is basketball, as good as it can be, because your resources are spread so thin that it's not making the leaps that it needs to make from a core basis standpoint, you know. Um, and instead what's happening is a lot of the things on the outside are just being shined up to have what really is manifesting itself as more of a superficial improvement than an actual core improvement that is something that really is going to have more of a far-reaching impact. Now, the game itself, their basis, their foundation is so good and so strong that you still can have a lot of fun with the game.
Right. I'm going to get it next year. I'm probably going to enjoy it next year for at
Yes.
least a good 2 months. But am I excited about it? No. However, I do sense a future topic. So I'm not going to rebut you at all on what you're saying. But
Okay.
let's write that one down for future shows. I think there's
I've
some
been
good meat there. And you
I've
brought up
been
some great
watching
subjects.
I've been watching Breaking Bad. So to quote Walter White, we'll put a pin in that.
I think we might have to steal that one.
Right, we'll put a pin in
We're going to put a pin in that.
that. Right. Put a
All right,
pin
my two games in terms of non-sports and sports, The Outer Worlds is definitely far and away the number one game I'm looking forward to.
in.
I'm a huge Elder Scrolls fan, a huge fan of the style of the Fallout games. Fallout 76 was a big disappointment, and the Outer Worlds looks like it's very much in the spirit of those games made by a lot of people who've been
Bethesda.
involved with that stuff. So I forgot the name of the studio. I'm not sure.
It's not Bethesda, is it?
No, it's the side studio.
Your side studio for
Outer Worlds. Yeah, it's not Bethesda proper, but they've worked on that stuff before, and yeah, it looks
Obsidian.
Yes, Obsidian. So it looks legit. I'm looking forward to that. And when it comes to sports games, the game I'm actually looking forward to the most, if it is coming out, would be UFC 4.
Yeah,
if they make a UFC 4, they're not.
Yeah, it won't be this. It won't be this year. They're on an 18-month cycle.
Okay.
And yeah, and honestly, you want to talk about a separate topic? That's absolutely a second. We definitely need to put a pin in that.
Yeah.
Because the whole conversation about how frequently sports video games should come out is definitely a topic that we want to go back to, because I have some really strong thoughts about that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, if that was coming out this year, absolutely, it would.
Yeah,
it'd be.
That's a fun video game.
Oh,
they did a good job.
I beat the brakes off my son all last night. Yeah, it was insane. So, but yeah, I would love it. But yeah, man, I really do. I really do think that we're gonna get a boxing video game. I think something like the Zone Boxing.
Mm-hmm.
The Zone, ESPN's the Zone, or not ESPN the Zone Boxing, but EA's the Zone Boxing, or ESPN made, EA and ESPN have had a link forever, but they haven't. EA has been really criticized by not using that IP as much as they could have over the time. But ESPN has a relationship with Top Rank. So if they could get in with Top Rank, that would help. I mean, you probably be able to negotiate something with Terrence Crawford and Vasyl Lomachenko, which would have an impact. Obviously, it would probably be bigger to link up with Golden Boy in the Zone. You get Canelo, and then you could also include Matchroom in there. Then you get Anthony Joshua. So now you got the two biggest names in boxing for the most part. So, I wouldn't mind seeing my boy Al Heyman get the deal too. Not like he need any more money, but it wouldn't be bad. See Deontay Wilder and Broner, and you're probably not going to get Floyd, but still, I honestly, I don't want, this is just kind of a separate topic too, but I don't want to see a boxing game do any licenses at all. I don't want to see them do any licenses at all. I want them to let the community crowdsource that whole joint. And you just got to get your legals in order and find out what you can and can't do in regards to how great can you allow that creation suite to be, and be able to operate without getting sued. Because people are going to create Floyd Mayweather and all that kind of stuff, and they're going to share them and all. They're going to do that. And you want them to do it, to be honest, and you want to give them the type of tool that they can do it. As a matter of fact, I have spoken directly to a developer who has flat told me that is his approach. And he's not a developer. He is the creative director of a studio. And he has flat told me that's his approach. And that when, if the boxing game that he wants to make sees the light of day, that is what he's doing. So I'm very excited about that. And I don't know how good the game is going to be. But I'm just happy to see somebody giving one of my favorite sports another look, But I'm also very excited about MLB The Show, because I think
what?
Consistent.
That's probably going to be. I'm probably going to pick that up this year for the first time. I've never played that game. Not a huge baseball fan these days, but I know it's an excellent game.
It is,
and I think
solid.
The next installment is going to be the first one that I get into, and as I'm going to try and use it as a gateway drug to get more into baseball.
Yeah, man. And you know what? It actually is just that.
Yeah.
Because most of what my son knows about baseball, he got from the show. You know what I'm saying? Because the game is baseball is just kind of slow for young people.
Playing baseball and actually going to a baseball game is much, much better than watching baseball on TV.
Yeah, I mean,
even though we're going to a baseball game, you also have the option of not going to the entire game.
Yeah.
You can show up in the 5th, 6th inning and have a sports experience. Whereas on TV, I mean, the game just starts. They just start commentating.
I love it. I love it. I love everything about it. I love the storytelling that goes on because see, being a good commentator in baseball is totally different than being a good commentator in every other game, every other
Yeah.
sport, because there's a lot of downtime, and you have to fill that downtime with storytelling and with compelling angles and point of view, and different people want different things from their baseball broadcast. Some really super intellectual baseball fans, they love it when you're giving them all of these advanced statistics and you're showing them this person rounds first base and goes to third base and they run on an average of 17.8 miles per hour as they hit as they round. Some fans love that. Other fans want to hear you tell old stories about baseball players from the
Right.
80s or whatever, or 70s, whatever. They want to hear that. And it just depends on what you like. But watching a baseball game on television is literally like watching a story unfold, and it has all of these different subplots, and the commentators play a very big role in telling that story and giving you all that other perspective. So it's I don't know. I don't know. I've always said that baseball is a sport. Well, I didn't say this. My cousin told me this a long time ago. He said baseball is a sport that is passed down from father to son or from father to daughter, because the sport is so slow. A kid is very rarely going to pick it up on his own. And if he doesn't have, or if she doesn't have someone that is there to sit them down with them, so the kid sits down with them at first because they just want to be with them, and they just want to be able to be hanging out with dad or mom, whoever it is that likes baseball. And but it turns into a teaching, and I'm showing you the game, and because on your own it would be too slow, you wouldn't take to it. But with a guide that you respect and admire, it becomes something different. And I don't know. I think that's kind of how it that baseball is a special game. It really is. It's and I think maybe part of the reason why it's so special to me is that it's not like, say, I guess same with boxing too. It's not for everybody, you know. But if you get it, I guess all of the sports are that way, because WWE is the same way. Because if you get WWE, and I don't think WWE is a sport, but if you get WWE, you get it.
Yeah.
You just get it. If you get professional wrestling, you just get it. And other people who get it, within the first 5 minutes of the conversation, you're like, oh, you get it. Okay, we can talk about this. I don't have to talk about it with you.
I just agree that baseball is, I think it's almost a little more like chess to a degree, where chess is for everybody, but it has to, but everybody might need a different way into it. It's not for everybody the same way as the dunk contest is for everybody. You don't even have to like basketball.
No,
if they start a dunk contest outside right now, if they just put up a hoop on a street lamp and people start a telephone pole and people just start dunking on it and they nasty, everybody's going to get out and just start watching it.
Yeah.
Baseball is not like that.
Well, the home run derby is, which is the equivalent of the dunk contest.
I don't think it is.
I mean, it's the baseball equivalent of the dunk contest.
Which is my point. If they started hitting home runs outside, some people would be like, y'all better not hit my window and go back inside. But I think baseball as a game has been proven to be for everybody. It's an international sport, does very, very well internationally in Asia and South America, and has at one point been the number one sport in America. But I think it hasn't adapted well to the competition because of what you said. It needs to be passed down. It's a beautiful, beautiful game in many, many, many ways, but not in direct comparison to the most popular sports right now, which have a much easier, quicker, more exciting entry. So I think it can be for everybody, but just not in the same way. It's not going to meet up with the violence of football, with the athletic skill and prowess of basketball, with the one-on-onemanship of tennis and fighting and stuff like that. It doesn't match up well with that stuff. It's more in the traditional games like chess and pool, where there has to be an appreciation level attached to the sport. It's not just excitement and spectacle all the time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I definitely see one is definitely more. I mean, baseball's it's just slower. It's just slower, and slow is not what's happening right now. You know, it's just not. It's just not. Slow is not what's happening right now. So, you know, that's just what it is.
I think it's a combination. Also, it's slow, and there's also a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
So with golf, people can get casually into golf because you don't have to keep track of that many folks. You know,
but it's no. I mean, you choose not to keep track of all those folks because you just focus on the people that you like, and you focus on the people who are in the lead. You either focus on the people you like, or you focus on the people who are closest to the top of the lead.
Right. That's what I'm saying. And whereas with baseball, I mean, there's a lot of people in that dugout, man.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, but I mean,
a lot
think
of
about it
folks.
on football, there's 22 guys on the field at one time.
Yeah, but only one guy throwing it, and he has the coolest job. Whereas with pitching, it's essentially a defensive player. So I mean, it's tough. It's tough in baseball. It's tough in baseball.
It's just, I guess it's just different. But yeah.
Yeah.
You know. But you had something that you wanted to say. So we're gonna close the show with your takes.
So this show we talked about a lot about MMA and a lot about what people are allowed to say. And it's my opinion that you should be allowed to say anything as long as you back it up. But just because you're allowed to say something doesn't mean that there's not consequences. And so as a fan, I would love it if Daniel Cormier stopped allowing himself to talk about Jon Jones.
You know,
it's not a long rant. I just want him to stop.
Man,
he get worse every time he say the word Jon Jones.
Like, bro, I don't know. I might have said this last week. I can't recall. Dude, Jon Jones brings out the absolute worst in that man.
Yes.
Like, Daniel Cormier is an awesome dude and just this guy who you look at like, man, you know, that's the way a fighter's supposed to carry this, all that stuff. But the moment he starts talking about Jon Jones, he reduces himself to some other kind
out of pocket. And the thing is, if you guys had a rivalry where y'all was gonna fight, I get it selling a fight. He's not even trying to fight Jon.
No, he legit hates this man.
I know, and it's stupid. Like,
and it's I mean, I understand to a degree, but you gotta stop allowing yourself to.
You know what I don't understand? The Twitter fingers. It's not like you a fan, right, and you can only speak to Jon through the media. You can get word to him how much you hate him anytime you want. Make sure he know it.
He probably has his phone number.
Right. Literally, you probably just text it to him.
Yes.
Or do it through a proxy. Why do you keep diminishing yourself by talking about this man? You out here talking about picograms. You talking about USADA. He's talking about his wife's butt.
His wife's butt, dude.
I mean, come on, bro. Stop. Because the thing about it is, when he beat Stipe,
yeah,
all I thought about was him beating Stipe and how awesome that was.
Yes.
Every time he talk about Jon Jones, we only think about you getting whooped and crying.
That's all.
And that ain't gonna change. So stop talking about Jon Jones. You keep putting coals in that engine, keeping it alive, feeding it all day. And as a fan of Cormier, I want him to stop.
I really would like him to stop because I am a fan as well.
I'm a big fan.
I love Daniel Cormier.
It's my belief,
monster.
He could have 500 picograms of whatever he want, and Jon gonna beat the hell out of it. So stop. You can have Jon with no picograms, and you get all the picograms you want. He gonna kill you, and we all know it. So stop talking about this boy.
I'm gonna beat the living picogram out you, Daniel Cormier. I'm gonna beat a picogram out your butt. You understand me, Dan? Look, hey Dan, you want it? Do you want it? I will kick a picogram out of you, boy.
Right on out of you, man.
You know, I don't understand. Like you know, Daniel Cormier talks about how he used to be bullied as a kid and stuff like that. And I swear, I believe there's something about Jon Jones that reminds him of the people that used to bully him. And he hates this dude. And
I get it.
The worst thing about it is Daniel Cormier was able to overcome those bullies.
Absolutely.
But he can't beat this one.
There's a great saying, Brian. Anxiety lives in the future and depression lives in the past.
Yeah.
In the moment, Daniel Cormier is one of the greatest, if not the greatest, heavyweight champion of all time. And one of the greatest light heavyweights. And one of the practically Mount Rushmore of UFC. He wouldn't one more fight against a significant opponent. You can't talk about the greatest ever to do it without talking about Daniel Cormier.
I mean, okay.
that him getting bullied is in the past. It's in
but
the past.
But you know how.
Let it go.
You know how that is, though, man. It's one of them things that, you know, we see Daniel Cormier as like, because we haven't met Daniel. I actually haven't met Daniel Cormier. He's one of the guys I haven't met. Yeah. But we see or came in contact with Daniel Cormier as a world-class athlete. That's the first time we saw him. But Daniel Cormier has been with himself his whole life.
Sure. So he got all of it. He got little bullied Cormier.
He got a little fat Cormier.
Yeah.
All of that, right? And so while our definition of him is pretty much built on triumphs and 2 losses to John Jones, his self-definition is far more vulnerable than what
and he's showing us every opportunity he gets. And I'm asking him to stop.
This guy is the one who brings it out.
Yeah. And he needs to stop. It's not doing
now, but I will say this: Daniel is a dude that I've seen over time. It doesn't matter who it is. If you challenge him, you get that Daniel. Now, it just so happens that it looks worse when John does it because John has beaten him. Like everybody who calls Daniel out, Daniel gets that. Everybody, Gustafsson, Ovin St. Preux, 2 professional wrestlers, the Young Bucks, Matt Jackson and those guys that are involved with AEW, with Cody Rhodes. They talk trash to Cormier, and Daniel Cormier said, "Hey, dude, you do not want to see me." He said, "You guys play fight. You don't want to see me in real life. Stop saying my name." So Daniel gets that way anytime somebody comes at him. But the difference between that and this is because you've already been there with this dude. Yeah. And he's already proven you're superior twice. So it freaks him out. And he can't handle it. Like some people like, well, they should just fight a third time. I don't want to see them fight a third time. You want to know why? No. Because I don't think Daniel Cormier's psyche can handle losing to this dude 3 times, especially if it happens at heavyweight.
Right. And John said something very poignant about that. He said, this is not a personal war where I want to take everything from Cormier and go to heavyweight and take that from him too. You know what, and the funny, because he would. That's the sad thing. You know, as much as people can hate on John Jones, I don't know about, steroid abuse or whatever, but in terms of the fight game, he ain't done nothing but told the truth for weeks. He told the truth about Gustafsson. And he telling you the truth about Cormier. Look, he's saying he just need to stop trying to take this away from me because I could take stuff away from him
all day.
He said he even said, I'm not trying to take this all away from you. You got your options. Keep my name out your mouth.
Yeah.
Or come get these fists, get put in your mouth.
Yeah. And then the thing of it was, now I will fault. This is where I will fault John. John knows that Daniel Cormier's father was murdered. Okay. He knows that. And he apologized to Daniel Cormier at one point because he told him, he said, dude, I didn't know that your father was murdered. So I didn't know that because John has taken to this thing of calling him his dad. I'm your dad.
Right.
I'm your dad. So Daniel Cormier was upset by that.
Yeah.
And it was like, for him, that's beyond trash talk. Right. And so John told him that I'm sorry about that. I didn't know that. Daniel Cormier somewhat believed him and took it. And then John started doing it again. So that I understand, you know what I'm saying? And I do think that that's dirty. for John to do that. But I think John said something very much that I think is very truthful about from him. When he knocked Daniel Cormier out in the second fight, in the post-fight interview, he said, Daniel Cormier is a better man than me. Yeah. And I hope that one day I can be the kind of man that he is. Mm-hmm. And I believe he meant that. Yeah. I 100% believe he meant that. But John allows that negative aspect of him to come out sometimes when he's talking to Cormier, because he knows he can just do it.
Agreed.
He knows I can just do it. And Daniel drops all of his strength, all of his better judgment, all of his tact, and he allows this dude to
well, that's the
bring
thing,
him down.
Because I truly believe if Cormier went neutral, he don't even got to say good things about John, but if he just went neutral and spoke about him like an analyst and was like
hating him,
you know what I'm saying, just neutral,
outwardly,
right? Just said this should be John's game plan. This should be Gustafsson's game plan. This is my prediction for the fight. Moving on.
Yeah.
What do you think about you and John? I'm not talking about me and John. Moving on. If he did that, John would leave him alone.
I think he would.
But he can't help it. He is obsessed with this man.
Yes.
Like Venom and Peter Parker. He needs to stop. Let it go.
Yeah.
It's killing you.
It is. It really is, man. It's bad. It's a bad look, man. It really is a bad look.
I say this out of a genuine fan of Cormier. Yes. I like Cormier a lot. I'm looking forward to him ending his career on a high note. This is not the note. Let it go.
Yeah, I don't want him doing nothing else with John Jones unless it's a doggone UFC poster signing session. I don't want to see them doing nothing
for at-risk youth.
Yes, something. But that's gonna do it for the show today. I mean, I appreciate y'all watching. We went heavier on UFC this week than we probably ever had. So if this is your first show watching, you're probably wondering, is this a UFC show? It's all those things. We usually do lean a little heavier on basketball, but UFC 232 was pretty.
It was a great card.
It was a great card. Pretty significant.
Only one bad fight, in my opinion. It wasn't even a bad fight. It was just mediocre.
I don't know which fight was that.
I thought Anderson didn't show killer instinct in his fight, and he should have gone in. Yeah, Latifi. I thought he should have went in for the kill, and he played for the points, and he was in a position to have that fight taken away from him if Latifi wasn't so tired. Yeah. And I thought he was the better fighter, but he hesitated to show it, and that was disappointing. Because I think he fought beneath what is possibly his talent level, and he could be better than he was.
Yeah, his game is really the takedown game, and Latifi, he couldn't take him down because of the center of gravity, and Latifi was prepared for that. But I agree that he could have been more aggressive, especially when Latifi was mouth gaping open.
I'm gassed. He was practically holding the cage, asking for a sip of water in the middle of the match.
Bad. And I thought that he played it way too safe, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And that's why I say that was the only disappointing fight. The rest of the card was brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant fights all around.
Yeah, for sure. Well, people, I appreciate you watching as always. And God bless and peace.
How could I be weak? I'm rather unique.